Well, today may go down as the hottest day of the summer season, at least it is so far, with temperatures that hit over 100 degrees in a lot of locations in areas across Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and points south. And of course, we had some severe weather in upstate New York. Rome, New York got hit very hard. So we're going to talk about that. And Joe Rayo is going to take us around on the radars because we still have some thunderstorms and some severe storms around. So that's all coming up. And by the way, one more day of this before we get to some relief starting Thursday. So we'll talk about all of this tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show, brought to you by Tempest by Weatherflow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system and join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The link is on the descriptor to this podcast. Use the coupon code.
Summer 2024.
And if you do, you will receive.
You'll receive a big 10% off.
Yes. All right, so before we get into all of the weather that's going on tonight, during the day today, if you were in New Jersey, if you were up in parts of Orange County in the lower Hudson Valley and even around New York City, there was a big kaboom, Joe. There was a great kaboom. Could it have been what was it, the Immunium space modulator? So
Yeah.
perhaps you could offer an explanation as to what that might have been.
Well, at about 11:17 this morning, there were reports coming into the American Meteor Society. Yes, not the American Meteorological Society, but the American Meteor Society. These are folks that keep track of outstandingly bright meteors that appear from time to time. And there were a number of reports in and around the tri-state area. One report from Lakewood, New Jersey, Joe, it's not too far from Tom's River, reported that someone had made an observation of a daytime fireball which was in the sky for about 4 seconds, a meteor that was visible at 11:17 in the morning with the sun high in the sky, visible through the brilliance of the daytime sky. And the person who made that observation said the magnitude of that particular object was negative 20. Negative 20 is approximately 800 times brighter than the full moon. So this object must have really have been quite large, because most of the shooting stars that you see in the sky, most of the meteors that you see in the sky, generally are no bigger than sand grains and pebbles. Now, for a meteor to be as bright as Venus, the brightest planet, you would need an object probably about this size, about the size of a child's marble. And a meteoroid blazing through the atmosphere about the size of a ping pong ball or a walnut could create a streak in the sky that could be equivalent to or even rival the full moon in brightness. So whatever this was, and it was probably maybe baseball size or softball size, it came roaring in at about 35 or 40,000 miles an hour. And believe it or not, that is actually slow for a meteor. Most meteors that you see streaking across the sky move with the speed of like 30 or 40 miles per second. A 30 or 40,000 mile per hour meteorite, that's about only 8 or 9 miles per second. So this is a relatively large and slow object that came down through the atmosphere over the immediate tri-state area. And at the same time that all this was taking place, people were reporting what sounded like sonic booms or rumblings. And they even said their windows rattled or their homes shook a little bit. And people were calling the geophysics survey out in Colorado, asking them, check your seismographs. Did we get an earthquake like we had a few days before the solar eclipse in April? But no, this was not anything due to a tremor caused by a fault or whatever. But instead, what I think people are saying now that it was the meteorite, but more likely, because there were reports of some activity, aircraft that were in and around the area that may very well have been going at high speed, Mach speed, which may have caused or may have broken through the sound barrier and caused sonic booms That has happened 8 or 9 years ago. In fact, there was just such a series of booms that were heard, also again over mostly New Jersey. So it would not be surprising if that happened again today or this morning. Yet it happened coinciding with the appearance of a brilliant daytime fireball. So a lot of people are saying, was it the fireball that occurred? Well, if it was a fireball meteor that caused the rumblings, if you saw that in the sky and like almost immediately thereafter you heard the sound, it couldn't have been the fireball. At an altitude of maybe 35 or 40 miles above our heads, actually, I think they said that it flamed out at about 29 miles above the surface of the earth over the tri state New York area. If that be the case, it would have taken more than 2 minutes for the sound to work its way all the way down from high up down to the ground for people to hear. So I honestly think that, again, with the reports that there was some activity going on, that there were some aircraft that may have been flying around at high speed that may have caused this, a sonic boom. I think that's what caused the sonic boom. But in the midst or in the throes of all of this, we had a rare daytime fireball. It's too bad that it took place at 11:17 in the morning. If we had that fireball, Joe, at 11:17 p.m. at night, instead of being seen by a handful of people who just happened to be looking up at the time and catching sight of this in the daytime, if that were occurring at night, again, something like 700, 800 times brighter than the full moon, I can assure you we would have had literally hundreds of reports for many hundreds of miles in all directions telling about this fantastic celestial sight in the sky. But again, not during the night. It happened during the day. Again, 10 or 15 people made a report of it. And again, it happened at about the same time that sonic booms were being heard in parts of the tri-state metropolitan area. Still some study and some investigation to go on, with this. But that's at least what I think happened earlier today. And you were the first one that tipped me off on this by telling me it right around noontime that you were getting these reports from people who had heard this big boom in the sky.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's good to know that we that it was that and not something else. But 'cause we all have our theories, but no matter. So
And
Joe's
you
going to
thought it was, you thought it was the uranium P-238 space
space
modulator.
modulator. Yes, exactly. All right, we've got some severe thunderstorms running around, including a severe thunderstorm warning. Thank you, Rich Rothmansky, for uh, Western Suffolk County and Southern Nassau County. So Joe's loading up the radars, and we could take a look. And there was a tornado. Rome, New York, got hit very hard this afternoon from thunderstorms and a tornado knocked down a church steeple. I did happen to see a couple of pictures, and it kind of looked like a war zone, believe it or not. So anyway, Joe, the latest radars, if you would, please.
All right. Well, unfortunately, this is a radar, but I don't think it's the latest radar. As you can see, the last one on the time frame or on the timestamp shows 2211, and 2211 is 6:11 p.m., which is what more than an hour ago, nearly 2 hours ago. And again, this is the same radar, the RAP radar that I mentioned last night that was having problems because the extreme heat caused some of the machinery or some of the equipment to burn out. I guess they're getting it back now, but again, it's
They don't have it in full gear.
they don't have it apparently. For let me check to see if let me check another radar. Let's check Albany and see how far in they get. And this is up until 22. No, it's 22:29. Again, that's 6:29. So whatever has happened in the last hour and 15 minutes is not being picked up on these radars,
Well, I'll tell
unfortunately.
you what. I just put up the OKX radar. So why don't we do it this way? Uh, I'll put up the radars, and you can go ahead and describe what's going on.
Well, that's good. All right. Well, the OKX radar is not being affected by anything major, and you can see that at the moment there are some rather hefty thunderstorms moving across western and central Massachusetts, where there are warnings that have been posted for those, but extend that further south down through the middle of Connecticut And you can see in particular some rather significant thunderstorm activity that's rolling through the coastal plain of central Connecticut. Nothing really happening now in the lower Hudson Valley. Joe, we had here locally in Putnam Valley along about 6 o'clock a brief, hard shower, which dropped all of 4/100ths of an inch on us, but really nothing more. You can see that there are some showers and storms now moving off of the coast of Brooklyn and Staten Island out into the ocean. Right now, for the moment, Long Island is free and clear. None of the activity that is occurring on the mainland from
Well, you
uh,
got that yellow box there with the severe thunderstorm warning there for
but
South
that's in
Brooklyn.
Nassau County. But Brooklyn, oh, I
Yeah,
said Brooklyn, and I don't know. I can't tell on the scale here. I'll try to make it a little larger on my screen. But it looks like if that is going to have any effect on Nassau County, it would be well, yeah. There's a little spot of red, so I guess around Levittown, for example, they might be seeing some significant activity. But the real heavy activity moved off of the coastline of Brooklyn and Staten Island is now pretty well at or adjacent to the coastline and just offshore out in the Atlantic Ocean. And again, the movement of this is pretty well from west to east, so it may skim right along the Barrier Island beaches of uh, Long Island over the next hour or so. But for the most part, if you live, let's say, in along the North Shore, north of 495, north of the LIE or the Northern State Parkway, it looks like right now, at least, you're safe. You're not going to see very much, if anything. The most of the activity that would affect Long Island would be confined mostly to Nassau County and right along the immediate coast. And again, there's that one spot of activity which is probably in and around Levittown, or maybe a little further south down toward North Merrick. But um, for the most part, Joe, the real activity with this is occurring over Connecticut and over Massachusetts. There's also some moderate activity, moderate showers and rain that were occurring over portions of coastal New Jersey, again, moving on offshore. And you can see quite a bit of activity on this view. Joe shifted over to, I guess, the Boston radar. And you can see if you live anywhere in southern or central New Hampshire, you're getting pounded, especially just to the west of Concord and approaching Manchester, New Hampshire. This activity moving along probably at around, it looks like eyeballing it here, 20 or 25 miles per hour. And it looked like earlier, Joe, when that area was over in eastern New York, it almost had that look of a bow wave, if you will, a bent uh, line of showers and storms. And those are the worst kind. Those are the kind that could really cause a lot of damaging winds. And who's to say there might be embedded in what you're seeing on your screen now, maybe a funnel cloud or maybe even an isolated tornado. So,
yeah.
uh,
The Weather Service has uh, there's a severe thunderstorm warning along a line extending from near Deering to near New Ipswich, moving east at 60 miles per hour.
it's
And
really moving that fast.
that's what they
That's
say.
wow. That's
Yeah, the
that's something.
that's over Cheshire, Hillsborough, Merrimack, Rockingham, and Stratford counties in New Hampshire. The thunderstorm that's over Nassau and West Suffolk, that's a severe thunderstorm located over Lido Beach or near Freeport, moving east at 40.
Oh, okay.
And we have a severe thunderstorm warning also for Franklin, Hamden, Hampshire, and Worcester County in Massachusetts. And another one that has about 10 minutes left to it in Berkshire, Massachusetts, severe thunderstorm over Beckett or 10 miles southeast of Pittsfield, moving east at 45 miles per hour. Let me just switch over here. I'll go to the Fort Dix radar. Let's just
Dennis
see.
Cassidy, by the way, pointing out that a tornado hit Rome, New York earlier. That may very well have been what you're seeing on the screen now. As I said, when this thing was over eastern New York, it almost looked like the shape of a bow type wave activity. And again, those are really nasty and can cause damaging winds. And again, as just noted out by Dennis, Rome, New York reporting earlier today a tornado. Ooh.
All right, so in Pennsylvania, at the moment, there's another line there just past Allentown, now moving into western New Jersey. It looks like it's moving into Hunterdon County. northern Hunterdon County, right along and south of Route 78. We have a severe thunderstorm warning for Adams, Lancaster, and well, that's further south, and we'll get to that. Actually, on the southwest end of this, Adams, Lancaster, and York counties, and a severe thunderstorm warning. A line from Churchtown to East York to Parkville, moving southeast at 15 miles per hour, which is a little more, I guess, reasonable. And I'm trying to see. Oh, and the other one, okay, so the severe thunderstorm warning now, the ones that you're seeing further east, just to the west of Philadelphia, south of Allentown, that's for Berks, Bucks, Lehigh, and Montgomery counties in Pennsylvania. So there are some strong cells in there too. There's also a small severe thunderstorm warning up for northeastern Monmouth County in New Jersey. There's a little yellow box there that's popped up, and that's part of that complex that's straddling the South Shore of Long Island. I'm going to go to, let's go to EN just to see what's left, if there's anything going on uh, in Albany. So ENX. So this is the back edge. So most of there's still a few stray showers up in northern New York and also in northwestern Vermont, northwest of Middlebury. Nothing severe. Just one flash flood warning southeast of Middlebury and northwest of Rutland, Vermont. And looks like there's a one cell, way up in the Hudson Valley that's moving east, moving toward the Massachusetts Connecticut state line. What's another one we could go to? Let me just try to go a little further west in Pennsylvania. Let's see if I can get.
Let's also remind people that last night we were watching this same area, but it was over in the western Great Lakes, affecting parts of Illinois and Wisconsin. And you pointed out, Joe, that if that were to hold together, it actually didn't hold together. It kind of faded a bit in the after midnight hours and then got regenerated by the extreme heat that this area ran into today. I think, if I hear correctly, Washington, 104 degrees today.
104.
Baltimore
104.
Baltimore, I think, was 105. Was that?
The airport was 104. Maybe downtown was 105.
Yeah.
Here's a wider shot. So there's a cluster of storms in northeastern West Virginia, also in southwestern, central and southwestern West Virginia. A couple of cells that have popped up uh, in central Virginia. Nothing, you can see there's two little severe thunderstorm warnings there. And let's go further north. The northern part of this area that's in New England, some heavy downpours and probably some rumbles of thunder going through northeast Vermont and northern Massachusetts, northern New Hampshire. And we'll see if they hold together by the time they reach western Maine. So that other southern line that's in southeast PA, south of Allentown to Lancaster, south of Harrisburg, that might get to Philadelphia in the next couple of hours, again, assuming that it holds together. I had a thunderstorm that produced a whopping 19 hundredths of an inch. So that's all I got out of that. And in Georgia, we've got some thunderstorms in southeast Georgia, and also in west central Georgia going into Alabama. There's some downpours there. Also, a couple of clusters down in Florida. I don't know why this thing is doing this to me. A few stray showers up in parts of the upper Great Lakes, and also in Missouri down into Oklahoma, southern Illinois. Doesn't look like anything uh, to worry about. And then we've got some activity. Oh, I know why. Hold on. Just gonna make this a little smaller. There we go. So we do have some severe thunderstorms in southeast Colorado and in the panhandle of Oklahoma there, where we have a couple of severe thunderstorm warnings. I'm just going to give Tornado HQ a quick check here, just in case there's anything new. Overall, at the moment, give this a refresh. Up, we have a tornado warning, Joe, for Custer County in Nebraska. A confirmed tornado located near Broken Bow, moving southeast at 35. Actually, if you look on the radar in Nebraska, right in the central part of the state, there's a little red box there. So if you ever somebody ever says, where is Custer, Nebraska? You just kind of go right to the center of Nebraska, and there it is. So they have a confirmed tornado for that particular county, and we have a new severe thunderstorm warning that's just been issued for Bucks, Chester, Delaware, and Montgomery counties. A severe thunderstorm along a line from near Royersford to near Glenmore to near Honeybrook, moving east at 30 miles per hour. So busy radar tonight. And don't forget, folks, that everything you're seeing right now is dated. It is 7:56 p.m. Eastern time. So if you're watching this on a replay, obviously what you're seeing is dated. So be sure you go to weather.gov to your local National Weather Service office and check out the what's going on in real time. Now, you mentioned the highs today, and
We had
95.
90, we had 96 here in Putnam Valley, by the way.
Okay,
96.
Montgomery got to 95. Poughkeepsie Dutchess County Airport 97. 95 for Terrytown, but White Plains 93. 95 for Norwalk. Now, New York City, LaGuardia 97. I don't know what Central Park got to, but if they are having the usual, where they're a little bit lower than everybody else, I'm going to guess that they got to 96 or 95 today. 89 for Kennedy. Long Island was hot today. Muttontown 93. Farmingdale got to 91. Islip got to 93. Shirley got to 91. And
Surely, yeah.
yes, sure. I always jest. And West Hampton got to 93. And then you get into New Jersey, southern Pennsylvania, and points south. And this is where we get the triple digits. Middletown, North Middletown, 100. New Middlesex County, 100. McGuire Air Force Base, 100. Lakehurst Naval Air Station, 100. And Chemung, New Jersey. I didn't know there was a place called Chemung, New Jersey, getting to 100. Philadelphia, the Philadelphia International Airport, as well as Philadelphia Northeast Philadelphia Airport. No, they got only to 99. Lancaster, 100. 100 at Elizabethtown. 103 for Harrisburg at the airport there. Uh, Muir Army Airfield in Indiantown got to 100. Uh, there's a 106 here. This Carroll County Regional uh, Jack Polage Field Airport has a tendency to report like several degrees higher than everybody else. So they have a 106. Baltimore at the airport got to 104, and Baltimore Martin got to 97. And we have College, but Baltimore Martin is right on the water, so that's probably why they must have had a local sea breeze there. College Park 102, Reagan National in Washington 104. Uh, what is that? That's Fort Belvoir 104 there. Washington Dulles 100. You get the idea, folks. Especially in Virginia, there were a lot of 100-degree highs. I'm just looking to see if there was anything else that stood out. Actually, the numbers get lower as you go south of there. They were in the middle 90s across North Carolina, and there's a stray 105 here from North Carolina fire. I don't know what that is, but it's way above everybody else. Everybody else is in the middle to upper 90s in South Carolina, so that 105 sticks out like an absolute sore thumb. And just to take a look, I don't know what I got to here. I didn't check. Uh, South Carolina. Let's move to Georgia. Okay, so Blairsville, Hiawassee, which is the next town over from me, 89. Blairsville Airport, 88. 84 for Brasstown. So that's right near me, and 3,000 and another 2,500 feet up, 84. But then you head down toward Atlanta. It was a different story. It's like 91 Peachtree, 91 at the airport in Atlanta, downtown Atlanta at the DeKalb Peachtree Airport there, 91. So the hot spot today really was Virginia. Maryland, and southern Pennsylvania. So probably will go down unless, I mean, there's still plenty of time to do this again in a repeat performance, but for now, this will probably, at least for now, and going in through the weekend and into next week, this is going to stand as the hottest day of the summer season.
Well, I think Central Park has been up to 95 today for whatever reason. And incidentally, if you go on the Upton site and click on a specific location, they apparently now are giving temperatures in decimals. Today, the high temperature, at least the last I looked at Central Park, was 93.9. So I guess they rounded off to the uh, nearest number. So I guess you bump that up to a 94 and make that the official high for today in New York. But I believe New York has gotten to 95. So if you go by that stretch, today was not the hottest day New York has had, but who's going to quibble over a degree? Yeah,
Right. Well, then again, it's one station. I mean, certainly for New Jersey, for most of New Jersey,
oh
not
yeah,
all of New Jersey and everybody else,
yes.
this was definitely the hottest day of the summer so far. We've got one more day of this stuff with heat advisories and excessive heat warnings. Although I think tomorrow it might be a little tougher to get to 100. Famous last words, but it certainly should hit mid to upper 90s in the hottest spots, I would think.
And tomorrow, and we will look at, I guess, SPC today, tomorrow, and on Thursday. But we were speculating yesterday, Joe, that we were under a marginal risk. There was a broad brush area of marginal risk for Wednesday along the mid Atlantic and Northeast coastline, including New York. And I said it would not be surprising if, when we get into today, this is from yesterday now, that they altered that somewhat and placed us in slight risk. And they indeed did that for
Yeah.
tomorrow.
I wouldn't I would use a different word than speculating. I would say we were advising that they would go to a slight risk, and just by sheer coincidence, the next forecast that they put out, which was during the overnight forecast, lo and behold, there was that slight risk, which we'll get to in a moment. Meanwhile, we've got flood watches up across southern Ohio, southern Indiana, northern Kentucky, southern Illinois, southern Missouri, and even a few flash flood warnings there that have popped up. A diminishing number of heat advisories and excessive heat warnings from Alabama west into Oklahoma and northeast and north central Texas. And it looks like we have some heat and dry issues also up in the Pacific Northwest, where we've got a lot of red flag warnings up in Oregon and Washington State, along with a few heat advisories, and we have excessive heat watches for southwestern Idaho. Also, don't want to forget our friends in New Mexico. They're very big viewers of the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, which is on Sunday through Thursday at 7:35 p.m. We have a number of counties, quite a few counties that are under flood watches as they continue to be dealing with some heavier rains over there. And here's what it looks like. I'm going to switch to the lightning strikes. The reason why I switched back to the regular Joe is because at some point over the weekend the lightning strike maps weren't working, so I switched to the regular one, and then I never switched back. But you could see the lightning strikes that are moving across New England, and also the ones that are just a couple of them now in and around that thunderstorm that's in southern Nassau County. It's in southwest Suffolk County. It's hard to, it's very small. It's hard to see, but you do have numerous strikes in that line, that line segment that's in southeastern Pennsylvania at the moment, and then you've got a lot of scattered lightning strikes through Virginia, North and South Carolina, parts of Georgia and Alabama, and down into Florida. And we're also seeing a few up in the plains and thunderstorms that are breaking out across eastern Colorado and down into New Mexico. The Storm Prediction Center. Let's see how these severe thunderstorm watches are going. They still have the severe thunderstorm watch up for New Jersey, for eastern Pennsylvania down into northeastern Virginia and Maryland, because that line that's down in southeast PA still has to play through. We also have a severe thunderstorm watch up for eastern Vermont, New Hampshire, and into a teensy portion of western Maine. Two other severe thunderstorm watches to mention in Nebraska and down into north central Kansas, and also in southwest Kansas, the Oklahoma Panhandle, and northernmost Texas. And as Joe pointed out, this is for tomorrow. And my feeling today, as I was looking at everything, I kind of thought that and I still think, obviously after what's played through today, now, upstate New York, and obviously what happened in upstate New York today was a totally different story. And that's the second time in a week that those folks up there have gotten clobbered with big thunderstorms. Although the tornadic activity this time around was less than what we saw just a few days ago. But um, I'm thinking that this one is going to be a busier, a busier one for eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England. I think there'll be more storms around tomorrow.
Well, it's associated with a more potent push of drier air, not so much cool. It is going to turn cooler. We're not going to see the extreme heat of recent days once we have the front move on by late tomorrow night, early on Thursday morning. But the dry air interacting with this very hot and steamy air, yeah, that tends to produce its fair share of active weather. So you may very well be right, Joe. We may have a more significant squall line moving on through later tomorrow and tomorrow night, as opposed to what we saw during the course of the afternoon and evening today.
And Vincent Croce, my guess is, I don't know, are they racing tomorrow in Saratoga or is it 2 days off? I forgot when they changed the schedule back a few years ago. I don't remember. If they're racing tomorrow, they're off the turf. And I'm guessing that if they're not racing tomorrow and racing Thursday, unless it's a stakes race, they're probably going to be off the turf. And those are always fun because then you have fields of 10 or 12 horses get whittled down to about three to bet on. Um, but that's the way they do horse racing in Naira. But tomorrow we've got marginal risk. Uh, much of Maine, half of Maine, all the way down into North Carolina. You see the slight risk. At the moment, there's no tornado risk being indicated. It's less than 2% in all areas. We also have a marginal risk in southeastern, well, most of eastern Wyoming, western Nebraska, eastern Colorado, western Kansas, northeast New Mexico, northwest Texas, and a small portion of the Oklahoma Panhandle. And then as we move on to day three, a small area of marginal risk in roughly maybe a little bit less, but covering the same general geography there in the Western Plains. And as far as rainfall is concerned over the next 7 days, I'm thinking, obviously what's going on in the Northeast and down into Northern Virginia pretty much is what's happening now and going to happen tomorrow. So a half to three quarters of an inch, pockets of it, a few pockets that might get an inch and a half total between the two. And as always, Mr. Rayo, in convective situations, if the storms are moving slow enough, those amounts could be higher. Sometimes they're double what they're forecast, correct?
And absolutely agree with you on that. We saw a lot of that last year. And in fact, there were a couple of cases last year where they were more than double. I think in one or two cases, the case where I had one day almost 9 inches of rain, and a couple of days later I had like more than 3.5 inches. Those were cases where we had maybe triple the amount. I'm not saying that's going to happen tomorrow, but in a hot, humid air mass like this, yeah, double could very easily be the argument for what the SPC folks are calling for in terms of general quantitative precipitation or rainfall. So you might want to look at what they're calling for your vicinity and say, okay, that's the bottom number, and maybe double that for the top number.
The next front is going to only make it about halfway down the coast. So from southern Virginia down into Georgia and then west into the Gulf states, we've got some wet weather. And that's particularly a plus, certainly for me, because it's bone dry up here. But WPC has got showing areas of 3 to 5 inch rainfalls in eastern North Carolina, even an area of 5 to 7 along the coast, and then a few pockets there in inland areas in South Carolina southwest North Carolina and northern northeast Georgia, which includes where I am, in an area of 5 inches, which might be a little bit much to take all at once, but um, it hasn't. We only had 2 inches of rain for the entire month of June, and I think it all fell in like 2 days. So we really could kind of use a good soaking rain. I don't know if we could use 5 inches all at once because that would be problematic. But heavy rains pretty much in the southern part of the United States, and not so much around the Great Lakes. And once the front goes by, not so much in the Northeast. As far as flash flooding is concerned, just want to show you tomorrow where we've got slight risk from southeastern and southern New England, and also parts of central New England, south and west down into Virginia and West Virginia. There's a small, that's the marginal risk, and there's a small area of slight risk, which is being indicated in southeast PA, down running right across down I-95 through Washington and through Baltimore and Washington D.C. So that's that we'll see if they do anything with this as far as making it a bit bigger. I don't know. We've got a slight risk in Arkansas, Northwest Mississippi, Southwest Tennessee, and extreme northeastern Texas. Also a slight risk in New Mexico with a marginal risk back into Arizona. And for day three, we have marginal risk across the Gulf states with a slight risk in eastern North Carolina. Um, so here's our front. It moves on through, and it should, for the most part, keep on moving. So we're going to get some dew point relief, and we're going to get some temperature relief from the extremes, but we're pretty much only going to go back down to near average, I would think, as far as temperatures are concerned, which is basically mid to upper 80s for Thursday and Friday.
Right. We're not going to see, if you're thinking, oh my goodness, here comes that nice shot of cool, dry Canadian air. As Alan Casper used to say on occasion during the summertime, you'll be able to smell the Canadian pines. Well, that's not going to be one of these kind of air masses. This air mass that we're looking at, it's not going to be the extreme heat that we've been through, which is good. The temperatures will probably be about 10 or 15 degrees lower than what we've been experiencing here by Thursday and Friday. And you say, oh, well, that's great. But of course, we're talking about temperatures that have been in many areas in the 90s to near or above 100. So where does that bring us to? That brings us to the mid 80s, which is actually seasonable for this time of the year. The big difference is going to be in the dew points. The dew point temperatures are going to drop from the 70s through the 60s. And by the time we get to Friday, they'll be in the delightful 50s. Enjoy it, because it looks like they're going to go back up into the low 60s by Saturday and Sunday. And you say, oh, it's going to turn muggy again. Yeah, well, maybe by normal standards, 60 or 64 degrees dew point is muggy. But when you compare it to what we've been dealt over the last week or so with
It'll
dew
feel
point,
okay. It'll feel okay.
it will feel okay. You will have become acclimated to all of this, if I may use the unmeteorological term, schmutz.
Yeah, and the other thing is with that front stalled out to the south, the dew points might not erode as quickly as they otherwise would, because the GFS actually still has. They've got some dew points that climb up. They got a 63 print there in northern New Jersey, but there's a lot of 50s around that. And then they actually kind of drop off a little bit Sunday night and Saturday night into Sunday back into the mid 50s from New York City north. Now, if you're in southern PA, southern New Jersey south, you get into those dew points that are more in the middle 60s. Yeah, it's hard to tell whether the GFS is right with this sort of leftover patch of dry air. It's always possible. There's another short wave that's moving across southeastern Canada with 40 dew points there and up into in Maine, but that is going to evade the northeast, the rest of the northeast and mid-Atlantic states, and then come looks like maybe by Monday we start to get back up into the upper 60s with dew points, and eventually as we move through next week, because it looks like that surface Bermuda high is going to be building back, you can say hello again to those 70 dew points that we've been experiencing.
Well, on the screen where I'm sharing right now from the Climate Prediction Center,
Hold on,
CPC,
one moment, please. Yes, it's all yours.
so the CPC is saying that from the 22nd through the 26th of July, now that is from next Monday through next Friday. Look at this map, Joe. We're seeing that for 3/4 of the country, the temperature outlook probability is for below normal temperatures. In fact, right here in this shade of dark blue, one, two, three, four, five. We're talking about in this zone right here, 70 to 80% probability of below normal temperatures. That encompasses much of northern and northeastern Texas, most of Oklahoma, right up into the Panhandle area, and a good part, western sections of Arkansas, southwestern Missouri, and also southern sections of Kansas, below normal. And that's something that is not seen too often in July in this particular part of the country. Meanwhile, in our section of the world, here in the Atlantic seaboard area, all the way down to about northern Florida, near normal. So we're not going to get that below normal stuff, but it'll be near normal. As I said, normal at this time of the year, around what, 83, 85 for a high in the afternoon. So again, it's not going to be that nice, fresh, clean shot of cool Canadian air. And as you pointed out, Joe, the dew points will be coming back up for next week. So it will be, near normal temperatures, maybe moderately humid for next week. As far as precipitation is concerned, what they are calling for next week is above normal, actually near normal across central and northern New England, northernmost New England, up here, seeing below normal precipitation, and everywhere else, it'll be above normal, not atrociously above normal, not like what, for example, they may be seeing down in central or south Texas with many inches of rain, but still, it's looking like it'll be a week next week that'll be again moderately humid, near normal temperatures, and well, what else can I say? At least it's not going to be extreme or brutally hot as we saw today for
Right.
next week.
Well, the upper pattern is not going to favor that the extreme hot weather coming back anytime soon. We've got this sharp upper trough that's swinging, moving southeastward, swinging across the Great Lakes and through the Northeast tomorrow and into Thursday, and then the flow is northwest out of Canada going into the weekend, and there's another short wave that goes into southeastern Canada on Saturday. So that might be why uh, that the model has a little bit of dry air kind of hanging around in some places over the weekend. And as far as where Joe pointed out about the below normal temperatures being in the middle and down, especially down in areas in the southern plains, you got an upper low that's forming there. And this time of year, if it's going to be below normal there, it probably means that there's an upper low, and it probably means that there's rain and thunderstorms and a lot of clouds. And I think that's how that's going to play out. But the normal highs up down there are a lot higher. So if the normal high is 94, and it and it only gets to 90, and it's raining, it's pretty miserable from that respect. But here in the east, the Bermuda high is going to try to build back into the southeast again later next week. Maybe at that point, we'll probably see temperatures rise and humidity levels. You get those 70 dew points to come back. The northwest flow kind of pulls up. The Canada part of the northwest flow kind of pulls up north of the border, but it's close. It's close by. So if there's some sort of shortwave there embedded in the flow that the models aren't seeing right now, it might start to pick up on that perhaps in several days from now. But we'll see how that plays. And David Schwartz, he asked the question about whether that front backs up as a warm front. I'm probably going to say no. The With the high builds back, the frontal boundary eventually kind of pushes offshore and sits there. So it doesn't look like a situation where you would get a warm front. You don't have any kind of low coming out of the southwest to sort of pull the warm front out. So the southern areas from Virginia south and into the Gulf states will be dealing with rounds of showers and storms, probably not continuous, but stuff every day. But north of there, it doesn't look like there's going to be much of any precip to deal with. And just eventually, that later next week, you start to see when we get into Tuesday and Wednesday, you start to see that Bermuda high building back, and then moisture starts to come back later next week. So I think that's how it pretty much plays out. I don't think there's anything in the tropics. So let's just give that a quick check. I didn't really look today, but I didn't think we're going to see anything. No tropical cyclone activity in the Atlantic for the next 7 days. And in the Pacific, they've got two areas of 0 to 20% off the coast of Mexico, and then one that's much further out near almost to 130 west. They have a 30% chance of development there, saying that a depression could form in the next day or two. So there, that is that. So
Yes.
you have Briller Jeopardy tonight?
Yes, I do have Briller Jeopardy, and it's something special tonight, Joe. We're going to. I think I got the impression from Scott Briller, the chairman, that we may actually be going a little bit away from normal for a little while. We're going to be doing uh, political people with beards.
Political people with beards. Okay. Before you do that, let me just do something really quick. First of all, big hellos to everybody. Welcome to tonight's show. I came to that a little bit late tonight. Welcome to everybody on the chat board. And for those of you lurking in the background, the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast on Sunday through Thursday at 7:35 p.m. And we have no plans of taking any time off this week, at least not yet. Subscribe to my YouTube channel so you don't miss us. Turn your notifications on. And if you like the show, hit the like button. And executive producer Ruben Fairchild, talking about this, you know, I think it was Mount Holly put out a statement about the fact that uh, a trace of snow, okay, is in their, in their climatological records for this month from the other day for the month of July. And the reason for that was because, as they explained, um, when you get sleet or hail, uh, they report it as in the snow box and they count it as trace. It's frozen precipitation. So it goes into the frozen precipitation box. There's nothing new here, okay? If you get hail in July or hail in August from a thunderstorm, it's going to go as a trace in the snow box. So just a point, just to let you know that that's what that is. And there's nothing weird about the fact that they are reporting quote unquote measurable snow. It's not really snow, it was hail. So that's that. All
I
right.
think about 10 years ago in July, we had in the overnight hours in Yonkers a major severe weather outbreak, which,
Yeah, I remember there was hail everywhere.
well, the hail, but it actually accumulated. They actually said
Yes.
maybe a snow shovel out.
Yes. I have a recollection of this.
Yeah, yeah.
Why did it go viral? Because of the way they wrote it. Okay, it's not a story. There's nothing new here. It was hail. It happened in July. It goes into the frozen precip box with
Yep,
snow and sleet. That's all that is.
yep.
Okay,
In which
but
case, you can
but but the social media person for the Weather Service wrote it in a clever enough way to make it sound like this was a big deal, and it's not a big deal.
right,
Okay, and there
right.
you have it. In fact, it's a no deal. So anyway, let's do with this politicians with beards. We know that
Yes.
Bob Menendez doesn't have a beard, uh, although he might think of growing one now. But that's another.
I don't think I'm going to get in trouble saying this. This sonic boom when you called me
Yeah.
this morning and said, did you get reports of this loud noise, this big bomb that everybody was calling about? And I made it was right about that time when the jury came out with their verdict. I said, maybe it's because of Bob Menendez's head
Well,
blowing up.
well, it happened around the time that the verdict came in because
Yeah,
I was watching CNBC and they broke in with the story that the verdict was in and that he was found guilty. And then just around the same time, I got a message asking me about this, and then then it went from there. So it was one of
yeah.
those. It was one
Take
of
it
those strange coincidences that I'm sure somebody will weave a conspiracy theory out of it.
Rich Rothmansky in the chat for. All right, it's a bad enough we're doing a political type Briller Jeopardy tonight. Scott says, we take a break from weather for a while with tonight's Briller Jeopardy, and he wants us to name the 5 U.S. presidents that wore beards. And he says, no Googling on the chat board. The 5 U.S. presidents that has beards.
Well, I'm going to say Ulysses S. Grant,
Yes, that's one.
um, Benny Harrelson,
That's two.
um, well, he didn't have a beard, but he had a mustache. Teddy Roosevelt.
That's right. Bully for you.
Is he on that list?
No, he's not.
He's not, because he had a mustache. He didn't have a
All right.
beard.
But
Well, Abraham Lincoln.
I will say bully. Bully.
Abraham Lincoln.
Yes.
Northern Grace says Rutherford B. Hayes.
That's one of them too.
That's four of them that we've got.
Right.
Um, so we're missing one. And Grant had, I'm sorry, Theodore Roosevelt had a mustache. He didn't have a beard. By the way, just want to mention, if you're ever on Long Island in Nassau County, make it a point to go see Teddy Roosevelt's house in on Long Island. And I forgot what town it is. It's not Syosset. It's west of there. Um, it is truly. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. You go in there and you learn about his family and his life, the life he led and everything else. And all I could think of was I wanted to be part of that family and live in that house. Okay, it's just an amazing place. Um, uh, Northern Grace brings up Garfield.
Garfield is number 5.
Oh, so we got
Garfield
them all. We are a smart Sagamore Hill. Thank you, Rich. Sagamore Hill. Um, we are a smart group of people here that we have a smart group of people here that are on the chat board.
comedian Robert Klein actually did a bit about James Abram Garfield. He said if you look up famous presidents, Abraham Lincoln, Emancipation Proclamation, and John F. Kennedy, Cuban Missile Crisis, and all these famous things. When you look at James Abram Garfield, it says shot by a disappointed office seeker, and he says it's the same every place you go. He said if you look at the when they used to put little biographies on the milk cartons. When we were growing up, Joe, they used to have these little cartons of milk you could buy at school, and they used to have interesting information about the president on the milk container. It said, shot by a disappointed office seeker. He said, if you go to the encyclopedia and look under Garfield, James Abram, it says, see office seeker, disappointed. But he was one of the assassinated, one of the presidents who was assassinated, and yet he did have a beard. Now, who was the last president to wear a beard out of the
Uh,
5?
Out of the five, okay, so give me the list of names again.
Lincoln,
Right,
Grant,
right.
Hayes, Garfield, and Harrison.
Um, was it Garfield?
No, it was Harrison, believe it or not.
Harrison?
1893.
Benjamin Harrison. All right. Well, they're very good.
That's interesting. It's interesting when you want to ask about, because of course you know that yesterday um, Donald Trump announced that the 39-year-old junior senator J.D. Vance was going to be his
And
running mate, and
he's got a beard.
he's got a beard. And he could become not only the first millennial vice president, but he would bring back facial hair to one of the highest elected offices in the nation. The Wall Street Journal reported that Vance could be the first major vice presidential or presidential candidate in almost a century to have facial hair. Now, I did not know this, but former President Harry Truman actually sported a goatee while he was in office in 1948. Charles Curtis, the vice president to President Herbert Hoover from 1929 to 1933, had a mustache and was the last vice president to have facial hair. And photos in the Library of Congress show that going further back, Schuyler Colfax, who was vice president from 1869 to 1873 with President Ulysses S. Grant, had a full beard. And Charles A. Fairbanks, who served from 1905 to 1909 in the Teddy Roosevelt administration, had a thick goatee. So these are people, it's been a long time. So if we do get a new president on January 20th, his running mate, his second in command, will be the first guy to have facial hair in that office for a good number of decades. And that again would be
Well, and in the
JD.
business we worked in, facial hair was frowned upon.
Yes,
I know when I grew my goatee, when I first grew my goatee in the early 2000s, I came back from vacation. I had to grow goatee. I have to tell you, it looked really, it was sharp. My hair wasn't gray at the time. It was dark brown and it really looked good. Everybody told me to look good. And this was at Channel 11 and they made me shave it off. And and it just bugs me, it bugs the crap out of me because now, of course, you know, they basically come on the air and they're wearing shorts and shorts and sneakers or sandals or whatever they're doing. So anyway, that's just changing times. In the 1800s and early 1900s, men all had beards. Then they went through this period where men with beards and mustaches were evil. So most men shaved it
sinister.
off. Sinister, yes. You know,
The only one I know of in our group of on-camera weather people who had a beard was Bill Corbell, and he went right into it with a beard. I don't think anybody ever told him you have to
no,
shave.
nobody ever told him that.
He looked very intellectual with
Yeah.
the beard, so I guess they just said, okay, we'll cut him slack, and he can keep his beard. So
Because I know you mentioned this, we talked about this off camera. We're trying to get Bill to come back, come on.
yes, Bill
So,
approach him, and Bill, we're going to get Bill to come back on with us soon, and yeah,
okay, very good. All right, the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast tonight, as it is every night, brought to you by Tempest by Weatherflow. Get that revolutionary Tempest weather system. Join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The link is on the description of this podcast. Use the coupon code, and
summer 2024,
if you do, you will get,
you'll get 10% off.
he said demurely. Okay, very good. All right, everybody, have a great night. We'll see you all tomorrow night at the usual time, Wednesday night at 7:35 p.m.
We'll
Nighty
be here.
night.